Nice to see you, Secretary Dunn. Thank you to you and your team for being here today. So as the chair of the Senate Communications and Technology Committee, I, along with the committee's former Democratic chair, who you just heard from, Senator Sanacero, and several of the members up here who serve on that committee, are really committed to closing our state's digital divide. One piece of legislation that I sponsored, Senate Bill 470, along with my good friend from across the building and the aisle, Representative Pam Snyder's House Bill 305, would require a full inventory of state-owned assets and resources for the further deployment of broadband in unserved and underserved areas. Your department operates the greatest amount of state-owned property in the Commonwealth. Ironically, along a separate track, the Department of General Services entered into a 20-year contract with 2 5-year renewal options with a company called Agile to modernize state-owned assets, or not modernize, but to monetize state-owned assets for wireless carriers. The administration has estimated that it could bring in over $100 million to the state, and they have said that it will not necessarily be for the assistance of deploying high-speed internet in areas of great need. Your department has placed moratoriums in the past on radio and cell towers throughout state parks and state forests. So I have 2 questions for you. First, do you currently have a moratorium on building cell and radio towers on state parks and state forests?
We do, and that should be noted that there's a public safety exception that we operate under. And I should also note that while we operate under a constitutional mandate to conserve the public trust, we also, to do that, we also need access to these very same services at the Park and Forest offices. So we are part of the need side of that equation as well. So we do find ourselves in conversations about that on a site-by-site basis.
So potential location of buildings and cells and radio towers and things like that on your property would be a potential option, but you would make those decisions on an individual case basis.
Absolutely, yeah. And Mike heads our broadband initiative along with Sherry Phillips over, DCD. So he's our point, and John gets directly involved on the actual siting when there's a need in a certain area. So we look for, obviously you don't want to put one of these where there's an irreplaceable, unique view of a wilderness area, but where there's existing infrastructure already in place, existing buildings and such. So. And again, we have these same needs at the Park and Forest offices as well. So we're in these conversations pretty frequently.
Well, so the second part of the question would be, as part of that Agile contract, money that is generated, according to the contract, will flow back to the agency that, for a lack of better terms, participates in the program. So with your agency set to potentially gain either a significant or, I don't know how much money it's potentially set to gain of revenue under this program, what are your plans to decrease your requests from the general fund?
We look at it, the lens we look at this is the public trust is the parks and forests. We're the trustee. We manage it for the public without diminishing the trust. So if there's money that comes in from a tower that say diminishes a view, then we would use that. I mean, we would ask the company to replace the land, replace the diminishment, whatever's lost due to the placement of that tower. Now, granted, with our own facilities, we can put it on our built infrastructure and such. I don't see the level that we're seeing being anything that would decrease our need for revenue.
Has the administration talked to you about this contract and what it means to your department and what type of revenue you could potentially generate?
Well, I'll turn Mike's in those conversations. He serves on our broadband initiative. So
yeah, good question. Thank you, Senator. And I should note to your question about are we interested in being part of that conversation, we are, and we do have over 300 towers already on our land. So it's a long-standing practice that
And some of those towers, I would assume, could potentially be used commercially in addition to the uses that you currently have for them.
Correct. I think
And they could potentially generate revenue for your agency per this contract.
That's correct, Senator. That's part of the
Have
assessment.
you estimated how much money it could potentially generate?
That's correct. That's part of the assessment that I believe these contractors, Agile, will do, is they'll look at all of the existing assets, and they did that early on in the process, said, tell us where those 300 towers are, and let's plot them out. And then what existing infrastructure is part of those assets and what additional capacity could be placed on that for that point that you're making, Senator, to generate more revenue. They have not indicated to us, as an agency, I can only speak for DCNR, they have not indicated to us any expectations that they have or estimates as to what revenue might be created from it. We haven't gotten that far. As far as I understand, the contract was signed pretty recently.
Well, 6 or so months ago, 6, 8 months ago.
So they haven't yet had a opportunity yet to look at an asset. They haven't had a request from the private sector per se to come to us with a request, and we haven't gone through that process with them yet. But they've been, for a couple of years, engaged in conversations with us, and we've been providing information and having and sharing data and information with them in an ongoing way.
And how many years have you been in these conversations with Agile?
Well, my conversations have been with the Department of General Services as they were planning this RFP and going in that process. In those 6 months, I think we've had a couple of meetings, less than a handful probably of meetings with Agile.
So it's not been years?
It's been years with DGS. I think that contract, like you said, was signed less than a year ago, 6 months ago. So they've had a couple of meetings during that time. They've not yet had a request that's come in because of that contract to a specific asset on DCNR's land where we've had to go through that process you're talking about.
Very good. Well, thank you. And I certainly hope that whatever amount of revenue you generate from that contract, that you take that into account and decrease your request from the general fund going forward. So thank you very much.